Good evening, Tuesday night, live from London. How are we all doing, everybody? Thank you for joining. Vault Digger, good evening to you too. And Mark, the Dorset SP. Evening, Alex, have emailed all the candidates in my area. Fantastic. Well done, Mark. That's awesome. And that ties nicely into what we're talking about today. For those of you who don't already know, there is a general election happening in the UK in just a couple of weeks. On the 4th of July, the British electorate will go to the polls and vote on who they believe will be best fit to run the country for the next 4 to 5 years. And this is an important moment when it comes to the Scientology debate. Normally, once the government is elected, they're less inclined to respond to issues of a local nature that people contact the politicians about because they're in office. They don't need to win votes. They don't need to worry about that until the next general election. Well, now with an election happening, there are no members of parliament, there are only candidates, and everybody who wants to be an MP is listening to what their local constituents are saying, what their concerns are, and making pledges based on what they plan to do should they win the election in order to try and get as many votes as possible. So this presents a really important moment for us in the UK to be able to do something that engages politicians and gets the issue of Scientology abuse on the calendar and on the political agenda. Now, there are far more bigger issues and important issues that are on the agenda in terms of the economy and the politics in general. Society has many challenges it's facing at the moment. So I don't expect Scientology to suddenly become the number one debate topic on the next, debate on the TV that you see with Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer. However, the more people we can get talking about Scientology, the better, and the more likely we are to then get a parliamentary debate on Scientology and its abuses in the next parliament. So I've been engaging on a campaign to contact all of the members of parliament or the candidates standing to be members of parliament in all the constituencies in which Scientology has an org. That's London, St Hill, Manchester, Birmingham, Sunderland, Plymouth, Bournemouth and Poole. I've reached out to all of the candidates on all of the parties and asked what they plan to do should they be successful when it comes to the issue of Scientology, because they have a building in your area. I've also encouraged in a previous video all of you guys to write to your candidates standing in your constituency, because even if there isn't a Scientology building in your constituency, it's still a concern that you as a constituent has. And as a member of parliament, those politicians are elected to represent you, the constituency, the constituents, and represent you in parliament and make sure things are debated that you are concerned about. So I encouraged a lot of you to write to the candidates standing in your constituency, and some of you did. I have definitely encouraged writing to all of the candidates, not just the one that you're going to vote for, because the issue of Scientology abuse and the abuse of young and vulnerable people is a cross-party, it's an apolitical debate. It is something that all parties across the spectrum, regardless of who you're going to vote for, should be talking about. And by writing to all of the candidates in your area, you are more likely to get a response from the bigger parties. For example, if a Liberal Democrat candidate says, I'm going to stand up and promote a debate about Scientology, and then the Conservative candidate does the same, and the Green candidate does the same, that puts pressure on the other party, the Labour Party in this instance, to then also take a stand, because at that point, they're the only party in that constituency that hasn't tabled or voiced their opinion on the matter. So there's political pressure applied on all of the candidates in all the key constituencies. That's why it's a numbers game. It's important to engage as many as possible. Now, last week I reported that 4 candidates standing in the election have agreed, they've pledged their support for a debate in Parliament about Scientology should they be successful. And today I can bring you the news that 3 more have also joined the fight, meaning there are now 7 politicians standing in the election on the 4th of July who all agree that this is an important matter that needs to be debated at a parliamentary level. Now, there's a link in the description down below. I'm going to share the article with you here. And I want to take a moment to just say thank you to all of these politicians that have so far responded and joined the fight. These are the three we're talking about today. They are all liberal Democrats, and that is just a coincidence. I am not here to support or endorse any one particular party. There are politicians in every single one of the three major parties standing in the election who have already pledged their support. This is a cross-party thing. I'm not here saying you need to vote for the Lib Dems. I'm here saying three Lib Dem politicians have joined the debate alongside Labour and the Conservatives. So let's not get into a political discussion here. This is an important issue that's apolitical and has a cross-party support. So Stuart Bourne, who is this guy here on the right-hand side, as you can see on my screen. Stuart Bourne is the Liberal Democrat candidate for Gillingham and Rainham in Kent. Now, one of you avid viewers and protesters who joined us at the IES protest in November, wrote to Stuart, who is the candidate in his constituency, and asked what he was going to do about Scientology if he's successful. And Stuart Bourne said he would work with the appropriate organizations to ensure that any abuses that are reported about the Scientology group are vigorously investigated and prosecutions made if necessary. And this is where I think it starts to get really important. He continued, in terms of providing support for those who need it, we need to develop the specialist skills required from health professionals, police officers, social services staff, and others to identify abuse, to make a full assessment, to respond, to help the victims, and to seek to ensure that abuse does not reoccur. That's why we want to increase funding for our mental health services across the country. Now, regardless of who you plan to vote for in the election next month, I don't think that's a statement that anybody could disagree with. I think that there needs to be more debate and more attention put on this for a wider cause. Yes, Scientology is important, and yes, those being abused and who are victims and who can't leave Scientology is a very important issue, and that's why I'm here on YouTube talking about it. However, it feeds into a wider narrative of greater conversation needed about mental health, and the mental health services on the NHS are massively underfunded. And it's something that there needs to be more attention and more discussion on, and something that I'm really campaigning for at the moment with all of these politicians I'm talking to is saying, hey, guys, you need to engage the ex and former Scientology community to talk to them about what services are needed, why it has gone under the radar, and what services could be there that could help people escape and leave that currently aren't there. Scientology teaches that if you were to report anyone to law enforcement, if you were to speak to a police officer about what happened to you, or simply request payment for your time working for the church, that is something that will get you expelled and declared a suppressive person. And that means if your family is still in Scientology, that you have to disconnect from them and you won't be able to have a relationship with your own family. That's the reality of what people's minds are going through when they're in Scientology and when they're leaving. So the services that are currently available, many of which are great in the UK, they need to be tailored towards specifically abuse victims, religious trauma, cults and coercive groups. And I personally think the way to do that is conversation and informing these politicians so you can make the decisions about what is needed and where the services are lacking. So fantastic response from Stuart Bourne there. Thank you very much. The next one up who's joined the debate is Holly Greenbury Pullen, who is this lady on the left here. She again is a Liberal Democrat, and I contacted Holly because she is the candidate for Liberal Democrats in Plymouth, where Scientology have an org. Now, Plymouth has a Scientology org. They also have the Royal Fleet Club, which is a building that has been in Plymouth standing empty and derelict for, I think, 16 or 17 years. Scientology purchased the building with the plans to renovate it and turn it into an ideal organization, and those renovations simply haven't happened. It has stood empty and vacant, crumbling, falling it down, and awaiting restoration for many years because there simply aren't enough Scientologists to get together to fund the refurbishment of the building. So when I contacted Holly, I said, this is specific to your area because they have a building. What are you going to do about it? And Holly said, she said, if we were to win, we'd absolutely welcome you in and listen. At that point, we'd know how best to act. It wouldn't be beyond reason to raise concerns higher up. I'd be very pleased to meet with you after the 4th of July, should I be in a position of winning in Plymouth. Now, I directly quoted that from the email. She spelt winning wrong. She wrote whining, but she meant winning. So that's great. That's a politician saying, hey, I don't know enough about this, and I want to meet with you to hear about why it's an important issue. Take note, East Grinstead Town Council, who so far have rejected my calls to meet with me so that I can voice the concerns of why they need to listen to the former members of Scientology, considering East Grinstead is where St. Hill is based. This is the sort of response I was expecting when I first contacted East Grinstead Town Council last year to voice my concerns when I noticed a lot of their councillors were going to Scientology events, and the mayor walked up on stage to accept a £50,000 check from Scientology at their IES event in November. I said, hey, can I meet with you to explain why this isn't okay and why it's an important issue? And I got shut down, labelled a vexatious bully, and told to stop talking about it on social media. The response I'm getting here from these government, parliament level politicians who are standing in the general election are being much more open to the idea of discussion and hearing our concerns. And that's why this is such an important time to do this. So East Grinstead Town Council, please take note. This is how you should be engaging with us ex-Scientologists. Chris Northwood, who is this lovely person in the middle here. Chris Northwood is another Liberal Democrat candidate, and she is also the deputy leader of the Manchester Lib Dems, and she's standing for Manchester Central, which is another place where there is a Scientology org. And she said she was aware of the Church of Scientology's history and their presence on Deansgate, and I'm very sorry to hear of your experience. You are right to raise this, as it is not high on the political agendas, but it is an important local issue. Now, Chris has gone one step further here, which is why I want to pay a special thanks to her, because she has continued by saying, abuse hidden behind a veneer of religion is unacceptable and goes against liberal principles. In a similar example, it is why we're leading the campaign of a ban against conversion therapy, which does not exempt religious organizations. She continued, if elected, it is something I'm happy to look into further to see what action we can take against these practices and the organizations which undertake them, and to join parliamentary debates on the topic. So that's the big news. Holly Greenbury Pullen, Chris Northwood, and Stuart Bourne, thank you for listening to us and agreeing to debate this in Parliament and assigning it the attention that it needs. These are 3 more politicians that have joined 4 that have already spoken out, who are willing to support the cause if they're elected at the next general election. They've joined these 4 other lovely people who are standing in the election. Diane Abbott there on the top right, Gareth Streeter, the Conservatives from Plymouth, Neil Duncan Jordan, and of course our good friend John Sweeney, the former BBC Panorama journalist who has been at war with Scientology for many years, who is currently standing as a Liberal Democrats candidate for Sutton Coldfield. These are the 7 candidates who have already willingly supported us as exes and as former Scientologists. And they are showing, they're leading the way in how to tackle this issue. So 7 candidates from all 3 major parties standing in next month's election are now taking a stand and sharing their concerns on Scientology, which evidences it being a cross-party, apolitical issue that needs debate. Now, why am I doing this? I'm doing this because the debate will enable the government to act where it is needed. I'm not asking for Scientology to be outlawed in the United Kingdom. There's freedom of belief and freedom of religion, of course. What I am asking Parliament to do is review the policies and procedures in place to identify abusive practices and abusive groups, religious trauma, and the services that are available to support those leaving Scientology, and look at the way the organization is treating its current members. people being locked in rooms, people being thrown in lakes, people being forced to do hard manual labor. People aren't allowed to leave the property at St. Hill without permission. They're not allowed to own mobile phones without permission. They are bussed on and off the property from their berthing. They are paid £50 a week to work 7 days, non-stop, no time off, less than minimum wage, all under the guise of religion. And that is why Parliament need to step in to do something about that treatment of human beings. You can believe in what you want, believe in Xenu, I don't care. But what you can't do is treat people the way Scientology is currently treating its members. So if you're watching this, please consider contacting all of the candidates standing in your constituency and ask them what they plan to do should they win the election on the topic of Scientology. I'd also encourage you to contact the candidates standing in the constituencies where Scientology have organizations. Now, there's another link in the description, which is a Google Sheets document that I've created and shared, which is a list of all of the orgs and the buildings in the UK that Scientology operate. So, for example, we've got London Org, there's the London Test Centre, because they are both in different constituencies. There's St. Hill, there's Walsh Manor, which is the berthing where people live, and they're transported over to St. Hill to work. There's the Manchester Org, the Ideal Org, which is awaiting renovation, and so on. It's a list of all of their buildings. It's a list of the address, the constituency, the current member of parliament, and then the contact details for the candidates of the 3 or 4 main parties. For some of them, there's the Green Party, there's the Liberal Democrats, there's the Labour, and obviously the Conservative candidates. I've highlighted in green here those who have already pledged support for a debate in Parliament on Scientology. Yellow, because Holly Greenberry Pullen didn't outright say she supported debate, but she is on our side in terms of agreeing to look into this more. So please use this. All of these email addresses are publicly available. I'm not doxing anyone or revealing any personal information. These are all email addresses I pulled off their publicly available websites and social media and so on. So please use this spreadsheet and email these candidates yourself and just say, hey, I'm a concerned resident, I'm a concerned voter, and I want to know what you're doing about Scientology having a building in your constituency. We're only going to get results if more people get on board and more people do this. The more politicians we have talking about this, the better. So please do this if you have a few spare minutes. And also please write, obviously, to the candidate standing in your constituency. It's really, really important. And we've only got a couple of weeks to do this in, because the election's on the 4th of July, after which we will have a new government who will be very focused on their new policies and implementing whatever they want to implement. Scientology will drop off the radar for them for several weeks, if not months. So now is the time we need to get politicians aware of this issue. And as we've already seen, a lot of them have already agreed that if they're successful, they'll meet with me and other former Scientologists to discuss the issue and see how we can figure out a way to proceed should they be successful. The more agreements like that we can get now, the better, because once the election is over, that then puts us in a good stance to kind of contact them all and go, hey, you agreed to meet, now you've won, congratulations, let's get a date in the diary and let's start talking about how we can make this happen. So that's my main message, is to say, please contact these people and ask what they can do. The second update I have for you is regarding the legal action that I'm taking against the Church of Scientology. I announced last week that I am pursuing legal action after they put up a hate site about me on their Stand League website, and also seeking recompense for the failure to pay minimum wage while I was working for the Church of Scientology. And I had a very interesting discussion with His Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC, which is the IRS of the UK for my US-based followers, and talked about whether or not we can pursue legal action because they didn't pay minimum wage, and they should be, because under UK law, even if you're considered a volunteer, if you are obligated to work, you have to show up Monday to Friday, 9 to 6. You have a job title, you have responsibilities, and you're punished if you don't show up. which is how Scientology operates, you're considered a worker under British law, not just a volunteer. If you volunteer in a charity shop, 9 to 5 every Friday or something, you're not considered a worker because you don't have to show up, and you're not going to be punished if you don't. Whereas working for a Scientology org, you're punished. You're put on lower ethics conditions. You are branded potential trouble source. In my case, I didn't show up to work one day, and I had my senior, Charlie Wackley, show up at my house to convince me to come into work. And I said, I just need a day off. He said, no, you have to come in. So for all intents and purposes, they are workers, not volunteers. And so this conversation I had with HMRC earlier today was really, really enlightening. And unfortunately, due to the statute of limitations, it's not possible to pursue the case through HMRC. So I'm now looking at employment law rather than national minimum wage law, and seeing if there's a way I can pursue this issue legally in that way. I did promise I'd give you updates when I can. That's the update on that one. We won't be seeing a lawsuit anytime soon, but it is something that is underway, and just wanted to give you that little bit of an update. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. If you want to support the channel, you can always buy me a coffee. There's a link down below, and that helps fund the time I'm spending doing this so that I can take on less work, so that I can continue bringing all this news to you guys. Juliana Bittencourt, thank you so much for being a member for 12 months. Keep on fighting on, Alex, with a little clap hands and a fire emoji. Well, thank you. And it's not without you guys. I wouldn't be able to do this without you. And obviously, as I said in the article, one of those MPs or candidates was based off one of you guys contacting them, and I was given the response that they received, and I shared that on Scientology Business. So it's not all me. There are other people involved, and it's with you guys that we're going to make this happen. So I can't do this alone. I'm asking for a little bit of help here. Please contact these people and let me know what they say. Please email me any responses you get. Leave a comment down below if there's anything that you want to see on my channel that I haven't covered for a while, and I'll try and keep you updated as much as I can. But yes, please press the like button, leave a comment, share, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and buy me a coffee if you want to support the channel. That's it for now, guys. Have a great evening. I'm not fucking about.